Voters in Multnomah County will choose a new county commission chair on November 8th. Current chair Deborah Kafuri is term limited out, and two current commissioners of the Multnomah County Commission are looking to replace her. Emergency medicine doctor Sharon Myron and our first guest today, Jessica Vega Pederson. Before she was elected to the Multnomah County Commission 5 years ago, Vega Pederson was the first Latina ever elected to the Oregon House of Representatives. Multnomah County Chair candidate Jessica Vega Pederson, thank you for joining me on Eye on Northwest Politics.
Hi, Ken. It's so great to be here.
Well, Multnomah County runs the Office of Joint Homeless Services, and you heard about the plan that Mayor Ted Wheeler is proposing. What is your view of that plan, and how would Multnomah County fit into all of that?
Yeah, it was it's a very broad and ambitious plan, and I really appreciate the urgency that the mayor, as well as Commissioner Ryan, have put forward in addressing our homelessness crisis. This is action. That's why, as county chair, housing and houselessness is going to be my #1 priority. I went to City Council on Wednesday to testify in support of the resolutions, really to show my commitment that as chair, I would be really dedicated to the partnership in order for us to address holistically the issue of housing and houselessness. We have to be working together. The city and the county have to be good partners. We have to change the way that things have been going the last several years and really have a commitment. And that was what I was there to show. There are a lot of details still to be worked out in terms of where places would be located, what exactly it's going to cost, how this will be paid for. But these are things where we can talk through them. We can talk about them in a partnership, and that commitment was something that was really important for me to show.
Are you satisfied that Multnomah County is coming out with enough shelter beds to make a dent in the problem?
Multnomah County has opened the most shelter beds of any government since COVID hit. I think what we have to look at is what kind of shelter beds that we're opening. I was part of I led a group of neighbors and business people in schools who were successfully able to site a shelter in the Foster Powell neighborhood that's been open for 3 years now and has actually gotten over 300 people into permanent housing. That's a good thing, but I think we've reached our capacity in congregate shelters. And as we're looking at how we're going to shelter people safely off the street, get them into more stable environments, get them into safer environments, we have to be looking at where the power of government can really have the biggest impact. So I'm a big fan of looking at master leasing of hotels, of acquiring hotels that can be shelters and then turned into affordable housing. I've actually been in conversation with some private companies that are doing that work. They've successfully done that work in Southern Oregon to help people who were displaced because of the wildfires. And so those are the things as county chair that I'm interested in working on. We know that people thrive when they feel safe and secure. So they have a door that they can close, they have their own space, they can have their pet there. And so these are the models that I'm looking at moving forward.
You talked about the relationship with the city of Portland. How well are you working with the city of Portland on the homeless crisis, and where could things improve?
I think there are definitely areas where we can improve our relationship, because there are a lot of big issues that are going to be coming up in the next couple of years that we really need to figure out where everybody is and how we're going to move forward together with this. But in terms of what's happening right now, that's working well. I've been in very frequent communication with Commissioner Dan Ryan's office as his office is leading the work on rolling out the Safe for Us villages, because 2 of them are actually planned for my current county commission district. So just this later today, I'm actually heading out to the new Menlo Park Safe for Us village and touring that. My office did a lot of work with the neighborhood association, with Commissioner Ryan's office, with some of the local businesses to see how this is actually going to work. We were able to build on the experience we did in opening up the Laurelwood shelter to help facilitate those conversations. So I think that's one area that we're working well on. I think where we need to have improvement, first of all, I think that there's been way too many silos, and that showed up during the pandemic when we were, for public health reasons, we weren't having people who were camping outside be moved from place to place because we didn't want disease to spread. But the county didn't step up in partnership in terms of some of the impacts of that, where it might have been more trash, it might have been more outreach needed. Really, we needed to do a better job of being a partner to the city. So as we're looking at what are the critical things coming up in the next few years, one of those is an intergovernmental agreement between the city and the county in terms of the joint office. I don't think anybody would be really satisfied right now that that joint part is working well. The city is putting, tens of millions of dollars every year into the joint office. They have a right to say, we want to have insight, we want to have, input into how things are happening there. And at the same time, the county, we are the entity responsible for distributing and making decisions about how the supportive housing services measure dollars are going to be spent here in Multnomah County. So we also have to, have that really strong responsibility. So talking about what that's going to look like, the lease or the agreement is expiring in June. And so that's going to be a lot of work to do. The other piece is going to be, we are needing to hire a new permanent executive director of the Joint Office of Homeless Services. That is something that absolutely the city should have a say in what that looks like and who that is and really what we want those outcomes to be. For me, from my perspective, the Joint Office started about 6 years ago, really with this startup mentality. This is the chance now. It's a well-funded department. We need to get some professionalism in terms of running an organization of that size and running the number of partners. And that's work I look forward to doing.
We've talked a lot about the proposed charter changes in the city of Portland, but there's also a charter change on the ballot in Multnomah County. So how would this change the commission, and are you in favor of the changes?
So there are 8 different changes that are being proposed for the Multnomah County government. So unlike the cities where there are a lot of concepts packed into one vote that people have, there are 8 different things that people can vote for in terms of the Multnomah County Charter. And I am supportive of so many of the things that are included in there. One of them is just simply how the charter committee works. The people who are on that are really dedicated to making sure they're doing their job well, but they felt they didn't have enough time to do it. So one of those is to expand it to 18 months that they would be able to talk and learn about the county before making their recommendations. I think that's great. There's an amendment change in there about really moving to gender neutral language throughout our charter. We did this earlier with our ordinance language, but to change something in the charter, it does have to go to a vote of the people. So that's another good one. So there's a lot of folks, there's a lot of really good information that's in there, a lot of good changes that are in there, and people have a lot to look at.
We've got about a minute left, and your opponent, Sharon Myron, and you seem to share a lot of the same philosophy. So how are you and she different?
We do. That's one of the reasons I think that the board has worked so well over the past several years is because we do share a lot of values and a commitment to the important work that the Multnomah County does in serving our public, everyone from our seniors to our children, running our libraries, running health clinics, running, animal services. There's a breadth, and we're really dedicated to that work and the importance of it. But what I would say is that, my opponent, Sharon, she has a lot of outrage about what's happening and things that might not be happening. And I share her urgency about fixing problems that exist, but I'm also about action. We both had a report that was made in 2017. Mine was about preschool for all. Hers was about behavioral health. Of her report, only one thing has been implemented. Now, in my Preschool for All program, we have 678 children who are actually in preschool this year. So I don't just talk about a problem, I actually put solutions into place and make things happen.
Jessica Vega Pederson, thank you for joining me on Eye on Northwest Politics.
Thank you so much.